He looked me straight in the eyes, calm as if he were asking for extra gravy, and said, "The best Christmas gift would be if you just died." That was my son, my only child. I couldn't believe it, so I gave him exactly what he wanted, but not before I canceled their mortgage, emptied every account, and left something on his desk that would ruin his perfect little life in seconds. You want your mother dead. Be careful what you wish for. It all happened 3 days before Christmas. In the house I helped buy but never really felt at home in. I was folding towels in the laundry room, the warm steam rising from the dryer as I stacked them neatly. The door was cracked open. I hadn't meant to listen, but I did. I wish I hadn't. Jason's voice came low and bitter. Honestly, the greatest gift this year would be if she just died. Before we begin, make sure to like and subscribe, and please tell me and others what's one life lesson everyone should hear before it's too late. Share it in the comments below. Thanks. My hands froze mid. The red towel I held suddenly felt like glass. Lindsay's voice followed. .com. Like they were just talking about socks. You said it, not me. The silence that followed was worse than the words themselves. My son, my only child. My heart hammered. I waited, hoping he'd laugh, hoping he was joking, hoping for any sign he was still human, but he didn't. He just sighed. It's exhausting having her here all the time. We can't keep doing this. I pressed my hand to the counter to keep from collapsing. The towel slipped through my fingers. I didn't care. She's not dying anytime soon, Lindsay said with a casual sigh. Guess we'll just have to suck it up until then. I backed away from the door before I screamed, before I cried, before I fell apart. My knees barely held me as I climbed the stairs to the tiny in-law suite they let me live in. My room, the one I wasn't allowed to decorate, the one without locks. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing until my vision blurred. My fingers found the notebook in the drawer beside the bed, the one with grocery lists and reminders to refill my blood pressure meds. I opened a fresh page and wrote his words down, word for word. The greatest gift this year would be if she just died. I read it over and over, hoping I'd misheard, but I hadn't. My own son, the boy I carried through 28 hours of labor, wished me dead so he could have a more peaceful Christmas. The same boy who cried at his wedding, who called me his hero at his father's funeral. I thought about all the times I left extra money in their kitchen drawer when they were struggling, the babysitting, the groceries, the 6 figures I gave them to buy this house, all of it meaningless now. I looked around my small, empty room. Off-white walls, a single dresser, folded blankets in the corner for the grandkids who hadn't asked to come in months. My throat tightened, but no tears came, just a hollow ache that settled deep into my bones. I walked to the closet, opened it, and stared at the suitcases I hadn't touched in 3 years. The small one still had the airline tag from a cruise I canceled when Jason lost his job. I bent down, unzipped it, and pulled out an envelope I'd taped inside years ago, labeled Plan B. My late husband always said, trust people with your heart, not your money. I hadn't listened then, but I remembered his words now. I pulled out the ownership contract and the deed with my name still on it. Jason never filed the paperwork, never paid the lawyer to remove me. He said he'd get to it. He never did. I pressed the paper flat on the bed. My hands didn't shake anymore. They were steady. Calm, finally ready to protect me. I picked up a pen and wrote 4 words under Jason's coat. I heard you, Jason. I stayed in that room most of the night, barely blinking. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard him. The greatest gift this year would be if she just died. My own son. And Lindsay didn't even flinch, like my death would be a relief. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen island, sipping lukewarm coffee, pretending my stomach wasn't twisting in knots. Jason walked in first, rubbing his eyes like a kid who overslept. Morning, he mumbled. I didn't answer. I couldn't. If I opened my mouth, I might scream. Lindsay followed, dressed perfectly, makeup flawless, barely looking at me as she scrolled on her phone. They moved around the kitchen like nothing had happened, like they hadn't shattered me the night before. You, okay? Jason finally asked. You look pale. Just tired, I said. Didn't sleep much. You should try melatonin, Lindsay offered without looking up. It works wonders. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to stand up and ask, does melatonin fix having a son who wants you dead? Instead, I stirred my coffee and nodded. My eyes drifted to the living room. The Christmas tree blinked softly. The kids' paper snowflakes taped to the windows. I'd helped make them. I always helped. Every year since I moved in, I'd made the holidays feel magical. Stockings, crafts, even those matching pajamas Lindsay insisted on for Instagram. 3 years ago, when Jason called in tears after his loan fell through, I sold my home, the one their father and I built. I wired $120,000 to his account that week. When the realtor asked whose name would go on the deed, I said both. Jason promised I'd always have a place. You'll live with us, he said. The kids will love having you close. God help me. I believed him. I moved into the in-law suite with nothing but 2 suitcases and my husband's favorite chair. Lindsay didn't want any of my old furniture, didn't match her aesthetic, she said. Now, I couldn't walk into a room without asking permission. Don't move the couch. Don't rearrange the pantry. Don't use that bathroom when we have guests. I was a ghost in the house I paid for, a careful, silent ghost who folded towels, bought groceries, and bit my tongue every time Lindsay rolled her eyes. Can you pick up the kids from school today? Jason asked, shaking me out of my thoughts. Lindsay's got a nail appointment, and I need to take the car in. Sure, I said, like I always did. My voice was steady, but inside I was falling apart. I took another sip of coffee, just to keep my hands busy. He looked at Mirielle. Are you mad about something? Why would I be mad? I asked. No reason. You just seemed off. I'm fine, I said. Just let me know what time. He nodded and left the room. Lindsay didn't say a word. She just stood by the fridge, eating yogurt straight from the container, fingers tapping on her phone. I wanted to smash it against the wall. Instead, I washed the mugs in silence, wiped down the counters. My chest ached, but I kept moving. That's what mothers do. We keep moving. I went upstairs to the guest room, my room, and opened the drawer with the documents I hadn't looked at in years. The deed, the co-ownership agreement, the notarized letter from the lawyer. They never filed to remove my name. It's unnecessary, they said. We're family. I stared at my signature, so neat, so trusting. My reflection in the window looked older than I remembered. Tired, I touched the edge of the paper and whispered, maybe it's time I remembered whose name is still on this house. I sat on the bed for a long time, holding the deed like it was proof that I hadn't imagined all the years I'd given, all the sacrifices I'd made. My fingers moved without thinking as I reached into the drawer with old mail, the kind no one opens unless something's wrong. On top, an envelope from the mortgage company. I tore it open slowly, already knowing what it would say. Past due, 3 months behind. My stomach sank. I stood so fast it felt like my body couldn't hold still. I walked to the tiny desk in the corner, opened my laptop, and checked the bank account I'd set up for emergencies when I first moved in. I hadn't looked in a while, trusting that Jason would only use it if he really needed to. Apparently, he had thousands of dollars quietly withdrawn. The joint account I thought was for emergencies had become his personal ATM. I leaned back in the chair, staring at the numbers, feeling sick. Groceries, utilities, random charges at home improvement stores. I wasn't just living with them. I was paying for them. Every time I thought I was helping, I was cleaning up their mess in silence. I heard the front door open downstairs. Lindsay's voice floated up too loud, too cheerful for someone behind on their mortgage. The shoes came. Jason laughed. Don't tell my mom. She freak. She's not even up here, Lindsay said. She's always in her little cave. My hands curled into fists. I moved to the stairwell where they couldn't see me. That emergency account is empty, Jason said. Completely drained. I checked this morning. What about her other one? Lindsay asked. The one she used for Christmas gifts. She barely uses it. She's old school. Still writes checks. Maybe she won't even notice if we pull a little. We're only talking a few hundred. That wasn't the point, he snapped. I'm not robbing my mother, he said. I waited for a follow-up. Something that sounded like regret. He didn't give one. Just, I'll figure something out. I backed away before they could see me and sat back at the desk. Heart pounding so hard it was hard to breathe. I clicked into the other account, the one I hadn't touched since Robert died. My little safety net, just over $18,000, still untouched, hidden from them. For once, I listened to my gut instead of my heart. I closed the laptop and started pacing, whispering to myself, you're not crazy. You're not overreacting. They've been bleeding you dry. My head buzzed with questions I didn't want answers to. How many times had I bailed them out without knowing? How many groceries? How many bills paid just this once with money I wasn't supposed to touch? Then I heard my son behind me. Hey mom, you got a second? I turned slowly. There he was, fake smiles, easy charm. Sure, I said, keeping my voice steady. What's up? Lindsay chimed in, casual. We were thinking maybe after the holidays we could talk about rearranging some of the finances, just to make things smoother. Smoother for who? I asked silently, letting him answer. For all of us, he said quickly. I mean, you've got money sitting in that emergency account. Maybe we should consolidate, put everything under one roof so nothing falls through the cracks, so you can manage it well. Yeah, I already handle most of the bills. It just makes sense. I let the silence stretch long enough to make him shift uncomfortably. I'll think about it, I said finally. But that money is still mine, of course, he said quickly. I just meant, no, I cut him off. You meant what you said, and I heard it, all of it. He blinked. What? Nothing, I said quietly. I just need some air. I walked past him, down the stairs, and out the front door before I lost it. The cold hit me hard, but I didn't care. I walked around the block, trying to calm the storm in my chest. Every step felt like a countdown. I wasn't the one falling apart anymore, they were. And they had no idea how close I was to walking away and taking everything with me. When I came back, my legs burning, no one asked where I'd gone. Jason was on the couch watching a game. Lindsay was in the kitchen, lighting one of those overpriced candles she loves to post online. I went straight to my room, locked the door, and pulled out the envelope I'd taped under the bottom drawer 3 years ago. Robert's handwriting was still on the label. Plan B. My heart ached just seeing it. He always said, hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. I never thought I'd need this. I opened it slowly, like it might explode. Inside, copies of the co-ownership deed, letters from the lawyer, a list of the account numbers he made me keep separate. He'd warned me to protect ourselves, even from family, especially from family. I hated him for being right. I called Sophia, the lawyer Robert and I had trusted for decades. She picked up on the third ring. Elaine, is everything okay? I need to know if the paperwork we filed on the house is still valid, I said. The one with my name on the deed. She paused. Of course it is. You never signed the removal. Jason never filed it. You still legally own 40%. Yes. Why? I sank into the chair, whispering, because they want me dead, Sophia, and they don't even hide it anymore. Her voice softened. Tell me what happened. I told her everything. The conversation I overheard, the drained accounts, the past due mortgage, and now trying to take my last savings. They're not pretending to care anymore. Elaine, we can act. You have power here. You're not trapped. I don't want revenge, I said. I want out, but I want out on my terms. Then we draft a notice of intent to sell. I'll have it ready tomorrow. Make sure it goes to both of them, I said. I want this to hit hard. After we hung up, I opened my suitcase for the first time in years and started packing, not panicked, not scared, but done. I folded each piece of clothing like I was folding away the version of me who tolerated too much for too long. I packed light, essentials, one suitcase, one handbag, my passport. I called the airline and used the points I'd been saving for a decade. And where will you be flying, Miss Thomas? The woman asked cheerfully. Paris, I said, voice steady. One way. As I zipped the suitcase, Jason knocked. Mom, got a second? I kept packing. Sure. He stepped in, saw the suitcase, and frowned. Going somewhere? Thinking about it, I said. Is this about earlier? Look, I was just frustrated. Things are tight right now. I know they are, I said without looking at him. That's why I'm leaving. I turned and met his eyes. I really do, I said. Is this about the money? Mom, we'll figure it out. You don't need to stress, he said. I tilted my head. Then why did you empty the joint account? He blinked it. It was an emergency. Which one? I asked. The mortgage, the credit cards, or Lindsay's new shoes? Don't do this, he said sharply. We're family. You stopped treating me like family the day you said my death would be a gift. His face went pale. You heard that, every word, I said. I walked past him, opened the top drawer, and pulled out the legal envelope, handing it to him. What's this? He asked. I didn't answer. I just watched his hands shake as he opened it. You're forcing a sailor. You can buy me out. Your choice. You can't be serious, Jason. I'm flying to Paris in 2 days. Believe me, I've never been more serious, I said. He stared at the papers. We don't have that kind of money. Then you better find it. Because Plan B is already in motion. The next morning, I woke to Lindsay screaming. At first, I thought something had happened to the kids. But then I heard Jason downstairs. I don't know. Okay, I paid it. Well, I thought I did. I went to the top of the stairs and saw them in the kitchen, faces red and wild. The Christmas tree in the living room was dark, no lights, no music, no fake fireplace on the TV. It was December 24th, and the power had been shut off. This can't be happening, Lindsay snapped, slamming the fridge door. We have guests coming tomorrow. My mother's flying in from Chicago. We'll figure it out, Jason said, trying to stay calm. Calm down. Did you forget to pay the electric bill? Lindsay shrieked. No, I thought. Mom, he stopped himself. You thought what? I asked, walking slowly down the stairs. Jason looked like a deer in headlights. You thought I'd pay it, I said quietly. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't. Haven't you been paying attention? Not anymore. He rubbed his forehead. You're really doing this now? He asked. I said, you told me to disappear. This is me, disappearing quietly, responsibly, just out of the way, like you wanted. Lindsay stared. You can't just cancel payments without telling anyone, like you canceled my presence in this house months ago, I said. I walked over to the kitchen, pulled down a wrapped tin of cookies I'd baked for the girls, and set it on the counter. You made your choice. I'm making mine. What are we supposed to tell the kids? Jason called after me. They'll wake up tomorrow to a freezing house and no lights. Maybe tell them the truth, I said. Some gifts come with a cost, and you ran out of credit. I spent the day finishing my packing, folding sweaters, scarves, one good coat. My passport was already in the front pocket of my carry-on. Around 3 p.m., while they argued in the garage, I crept downstairs and placed a small gift for each grandchild under the tree. Simple brown paper, their names in thick marker. Inside each box was a letter from me, love memories, and a reminder that none of this was their fault. I went back upstairs, sat on the bed with my suitcase beside me, and for the first time in weeks, I smiled. But deep down, something still felt off. My phone buzzed just before dinner. Sophia had emailed the official notice to Jason's and Lindsay's personal inboxes. Notice of intent to sell. Elaine Thomas. Perfect timing. The lights never came back on. Around 7 p.m., Lindsay stormed out, grabbing her car keys without a word. Jason followed her outside, yelling. I didn't go down. I stayed in my room, listening as they unraveled piece by piece. At 4 a.m., I quietly rolled my suitcase through the dark hallway and down the stairs. The house was cold, silent, empty. I paused at the door, hand on the handle, heart pounding but steady. I opened it slowly and stepped outside. Snow had started to fall, a thin, dusty layer on the front steps. I shut the door behind me and walked to the driveway, where the airport shuttle was waiting. As I climbed in, I looked back once. The Christmas tree in the window was still dark. That was their Christmas, and I hadn't even given them my real gift yet. I landed in Paris just after noon. Not once did I cry on the flight, not when we took off, not when we landed, not when the man beside me asked if I was meeting family. No, I said, pressing my lips into a smile. I left them behind. If you want, I can now combine all 4 parts you've shared into one smooth, suspenseful story that flows. I wheeled my suitcase through the airport with steady hands and a quiet mind. The taxi ride to the apartment was long, but I didn't care. I watched the city blur past bright holiday banners across the buildings, people rushing in coats, couples holding hands. No one knew who I was. For the first time in years, that didn't scare me, comforted me. I met Lucille, a friend of Robert's from university. She handed me the keys to her apartment. Stay as long as you like, she said. I thanked her and meant it. I unpacked just enough. 2 drawers, 1 small closet. I made a cup of tea, opened the window, and just sat. That night, I walked along the Seine, coat zipped to my chin. The air stung, but it made me feel alive. I wasn't floating through someone else's house anymore. I wasn't invisible. I was here. I'd barely closed the door behind me when my phone buzzed. Jason, then Lindsay, then more missed calls and messages. I didn't open them. I didn't need to. I already knew what they were saying. The next morning, I checked my email. Sophia had sent me a note. You might want to read this. She'd forwarded the mortgage thread. Jason had called in a panic. The mortgage was in danger. They were in default. Elaine Thomas is not responding. She must be traveling. She isn't part of the household anymore. Sophia's reply was simple. Miss Thomas remains a Conner, and is well within her rights to act accordingly. I read it twice, then messaged her. Please handle everything through legal channels. I'm unavailable for direct contact. Later, while watching the Eiffel Tower sparkle from the living room window, my phone rang again. This time, it was the mortgage lender. I let it ring twice before answering. Is this Miss Elaine Thomas? It is. We're calling about a co-owned property currently in arrears. We've received your legal filing and would like to confirm your intentions. My lawyer will handle everything, I said. Please direct all communication to her. Miss Thomas, are you aware the other party is having difficulty with payments? Yes, and I still wish to proceed with the intent to sell. I stared out at the street below. Yes, I said. After I hung up, I turned my phone face down on the table. I wasn't running. I wasn't hiding. I was claiming space for the first time in years. I made a list on the back of a grocery receipt. One column, what they took, time, money, trust, holidays, my voice, my place. The other, what I had left, dignity, proof, control, a passport, and now, Paris. The next morning, Sophia emailed again. They're begging to negotiate. Are you ready? I didn't reply right away. I stood at the window, fingers wrapped around my mug, watching the world move forward as if I'd never existed in it. My son thought he could break me, but he didn't know. Neither of them did. I wasn't just gone. I was building a life where their access had been revoked. One breath, one page, one email at a time. I waited until the first week of January, not out of kindness, but because I wanted the silence to stretch. Cold nights, overdue bills, no idea where I was or if I'd ever come back. Then I mailed the letter. Not an email, not a text, not a call. A real letter, sealed in plain white, with Jason's name on the front in my handwriting. I paid extra for next-day delivery. 2 days later, my phone buzzed with a video call from him. I didn't answer. A minute later, another from Lindsay, then a text. How dare you? I smiled and set the phone down. I had written the letter, carefully, no rage, no insults, just truth. Hard, uncomfortable truth. Every dollar I'd contributed, every payment I'd made, every forgotten sacrifice. The night, I overheard them talking about the power outage, the silence, the lies, then the final paragraph. This house was a gift. So was I. You lost both. You can refinance the mortgage or sell and downsize. Either way, I'm done covering for people who see me as a burden. Consider this your final Christmas gift. Jason called again, and finally, I answered. What were you thinking? He snapped. You mailed the letter like this. You gave me no choice. You humiliated us. You humiliated Mira P. We didn't mean it. Yes, you did, I said, keeping my voice steady. And now you get to live with it. Do you have any idea what you've done? I gave you exactly what you asked for. I disappeared. He paused, and for a second, I thought I heard him choke up. You blindsided us, Mom. No, I said softly. You just weren't paying attention. I ended the call before he could respond. I sank back onto the couch, took a deep breath, and looked out the window at the narrow Parisian street below. A couple walked past, laughing. A man with a scarf carried a baguette under his arm. Life kept moving. When I wrote that letter, I wasn't thinking about revenge. It wasn't about revenge. It was about taking back what had been chipped away over the years. My worth. That letter wasn't written to hurt anyone. It was written to stop the bleeding, to stop pretending that love means letting yourself be drained dry. Later that night, I got one more message from Lindsay. Just one sentence. You've ruined us. I read it twice, then deleted it without replying. Their ruin wasn't my doing it. Was their entitlement, their manipulation, their belief that I'd keep giving, no matter how cruel they became. My only crime was finally saying no. I poured a glass of wine, sat by the window, and opened the little notebook I'd started keeping. At the top of the next page, I wrote one word, freedom, and just below it, another, finally. I hadn't planned to respond. I really hadn't. But when Jason sent that last message, you owe us at least a conversation, something inside me snapped. My heart pounded, my lips pressed tight. I stared at the screen, then called him. You finally decided to talk. This isn't a conversation, I said. It's clarity. We're your family. Mom, you're the people who watched me cook, clean, pay, babysit, and still whispered that I was in the way. He went quiet. You said the greatest gift would be if I just died. Remember, you didn't mean it like that. You said it, and you let her say it in front of Yuan. You didn't stop her. You're twisting everything, he said. No, I said calmly. I'm finally seeing it straight. We didn't ask you to leave like that. You ghosted us. Left the kids confused. I left letters for each of them so they'd never blame themselves. Can you say the same? We're drowning, Mom. The mortgage is underwater. Lindsay's mom backed out of helping. We're selling furniture to stay afloat. You built a house on a foundation I paid for, and now that I've stepped away, it's collapsing. That's not on me, I said. So what? You just abandon us. No, I said, I'm holding you accountable. You're not bad people. You're not evil, but you were selfish, entitled. You treated me like a live-in ATM with no feelings. That's over. "What do you want from us?" he asked. "Nothing. That's the point," I said. "So, that's it." "No. You'll hear from Sophia. She's drawing up the documents. The house will be sold. You'll get your share after I take mine back. What's left is yours to rebuild with." "Rebuild with what? There's barely anything left." "Then maybe you'll finally understand what it's like to start over." I hung up. My hands shook, but not from fear. Relief. I stood, walked to the mirror above the fireplace, and looked at myself. Not to check my hair or makeup, just to see who I was now. Not a ghost, not a doormat, not the woman who quietly disappeared to make others comfortable. I was someone who drew a line and stood behind it. Someone who stopped bleeding for people who never offered a bandage. That night, I went out to dinner alone at a little restaurant nearby. The waiter asked if I was celebrating something. I almost said no. Then I smiled. "Yes, I am." I didn't explain. I didn't owe anyone an explanation. I didn't owe anyone anything anymore. Back at the apartment, I poured a glass of wine and opened my notebook again. This page, I titled, "What I Will Never Do Again." I wrote, "I will never beg to be respected. I will never explain myself to people who only listen to respond. I will never call it love if it leaves me empty." My phone buzzed once more. A photo from Jason. The Christmas tree dimly lit, ornaments sparse, kids asleep in the background. No message, no caption, just the image. I stared at it for a few seconds, then turned the phone off and closed the notebook. I wasn't going back. That bridge had burned on. I didn't miss the smoke. The final papers came through on a Tuesday morning. The apartment was quiet, except for the soft ticking of the kitchen clock. I sat with the documents spread in front of me, reading every line again. It was official. The house was sold, the debts settled, the accounts cleared. Jason and Lindsay would get what was left. Not much, but fair. My share had been removed cleanly, legally. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel sad either. Just still. I packed the folder, slid it into my carry-on, and checked the clock. Time to catch my train. As I zipped the suitcase, my phone buzzed. A voice message from Jason. I hesitated, then pressed play. "You win," he said. His voice sounded flat, tired. "We're moving into an apartment near Lindsay's mom. The kids don't really understand what's happening. Neither do I, but I guess it's what we deserve. If that's what you needed, you got it." I didn't reply, not because I didn't care, but because I finally understood something. His pain wasn't mine to carry anymore. I had spent years absorbing the guilt, the blame, the chaos of everyone else. I wasn't doing that now. I stood at the window, watching Paris traffic glide by. Then I turned, wheeled my suitcase to the door, and locked the apartment behind me. The taxi driver helped load my bags. "Business or vacation?" he asked. "Closure," I said quietly. He nodded, like he understood. Maybe he did. On the train, I found my seat and sat back, watching the city blur past. I thought about the woman I used to be, the one who kept the peace, swallowed her voice, and sacrificed herself to hold the family together. That woman was gone. She didn't just leave. She evolved. My thoughts drifted to the kids. I missed them. That ache was still there, but I had left them something: letters, photos, memories. One day, they would read those letters. One day, they would understand that love isn't measured by how much you give until there's nothing left. It's measured by the boundaries you draw to survive. I pulled out my notebook one last time. At the top of the page, I wrote, "I didn't just walk away. I walked toward myself." I stared at the words, then added one more line beneath. "Let them learn from the echo of my absence." As the train rolled forward, so did I, not toward revenge, not toward regret, but toward peace. The kind you earn, not the kind you're given. That's today's story. If it touched you, leave a like and subscribe. And don't forget, share your own life lesson in the comments below.